The MAGA movement is an open, brutal warfare. This isn't just a policy disagreement. It's a political patricide set off by the one figure Donald Trump could least afford to lose, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. The core of her rebellion? The very files Trump once promised to release, the unsealed secrets of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. When Greene spearheaded the push for full transparency, forcing a House vote on the Epstein Files Transparency Act, Trump's sudden, aggressive reversal, calling the push a Democrat hoax and labeling his former loyalist a traitor, was the match that lit the movement's internal flame. The betrayal, delivered publicly on Truth Social and in Oval Office statements, shattered the MAGA alliance and created a loyalty vacuum. But the real shockwave came when Elon Musk entered the fray. The tech mogul, who himself had been in and out of Trump's good graces, weaponized his platform, X, to question the president's sudden opposition to truth and transparency. Musk didn't just support Greene. He amplified her central accusation that powerful forces, potentially including the administration itself, were actively working to suppress the full scope of the Epstein client list. This collision, the MAGA rebel, the blindsided president, and the tech disruptor, has exposed deep, toxic fault lines within the Republican base. It has fundamentally changed the conversation, turning a domestic political spat into a crisis of integrity that has many asking. If the America First movement can't deliver on its promise of draining the swamp and exposing global corruption, what is it actually fighting for? The battle for the Epstein files is now a proxy war for the soul and future of the American right, and Donald Trump didn't predict the enemy would emerge from his own inner circle. The air in Washington, D.C. feels like high-tension wires stretched taut across a fault line. The seismic shift is palpable, emanating directly from a feud that has shattered the foundational premise of the MAGA movement: absolute, unquestioning loyalty to Donald Trump. The key figure in this unprecedented political schism is Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has transformed, seemingly overnight, from Trump's most ferocious champion to his most dangerous internal critic. This isn't a battle over infrastructure spending or foreign aid. It's a fight for the unvarnished truth about Jeffrey Epstein, and it has created a perfect political firestorm that even the president's most seasoned strategists failed to anticipate. The Epstein files, the poison pill of loyalty. For years, the promise to drain the swamp and expose the dark underbelly of the elite was a rallying cry that animated Trump's base. The files related to the late convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, represented the ultimate opportunity to fulfill that promise, a definitive, nonpartisan issue of transparency that promised to implicate power brokers across political, financial, and celebrity spheres. Greene, reading the will of the base she helped cultivate, took the lead on the bipartisan push for the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Along with a handful of other conservative and progressive lawmakers, she signed a discharge petition to force a vote in the House, bypassing leadership and daring the establishment to block the truth. The shock was not Greene's action, but the White House's reaction. Instead of embracing the transparency he once championed, President Trump abruptly reversed course, reportedly viewing the discharge petition as an act of insubordination and a threat to his administration's stability. Behind closed doors, West Wing officials reportedly threatened Greene with primary challenges and the withdrawal of all political support. When she refused to back down, the private war went public. On Truth Social, Donald Trump unleashed a series of blistering posts, not just criticizing Greene's policy position, but attacking her personally and questioning her loyalty. The epithet was immediate and devastating: Marjorie Taylor Greene. He went further, suggesting the entire effort to release the files was a Democrat hoax that never ends, a claim that directly contradicted years of MAGA rhetoric and, more critically, infuriated the very base he relies on. Greene's response was a moment of political defiance rarely seen in modern politics. She did not grovel or retreat. Instead, she stood before the cameras with Epstein survivors, pointing the finger directly at her former ally. "I was called a traitor by a man that I fought for 6 years for, and I gave him my loyalty for free," she stated, her voice shaking with controlled anger. A traitor is an American that serves foreign countries and themselves. Let me tell you, this is a fight for the truth, and the American people will not tolerate any other bullshit. Her words resonated with a significant portion of the base, creating a rift between the loyalists who view Trump as the singular leader and the purists who believe the MAGA philosophy, America first, drain the swamp, is bigger than any single man. The Musk factor, an unpredictable amplification. The crisis of faith within the Republican Party escalated into a global spectacle with the intervention of Elon Musk. Musk's relationship with Trump is famously erratic, characterized by periods of mutual admiration and public, fiery feuds. This time, however, Musk's entry into the conflict was a direct tactical strike on Trump's credibility. Musk leveraged his platform, X, to amplify Greene's central thesis. The administration was actively trying to bury information. He didn't just retweet Greene's clips. He added his own commentary, suggesting that the sudden and aggressive White House opposition proved that the files contained explosive information that threatened the president or his close associates. The level of coordinated opposition to the Epstein files release is the only proof you need, one Musk post read. In a follow-up, he directly referenced his own previous exile from Trump world, writing, "They only call you a traitor when you're exposing the truth they don't want you to see. I speak from experience. Bravo, MTG, for having the guts to stand with the victims." This was a devastating blow for two critical reasons. First, Musk commands a massive, influential, and politically diverse audience that Trump cannot easily dismiss or silence. His endorsement of Greene's transparency crusade legitimized the revolt in the eyes of many voters who might otherwise have seen it as a simple congressional spat. Second, Musk explicitly linked Trump's opposition to the files to his own volatile, on-again, off-again relationship with the president, reminding the public that Trump's loyalty is conditional and ruthlessly transactional. Musk's intervention turned the MAGA civil war into a populist battle cry. The billionaire tech disruptor is now siding with the MAGA rebel against the very president she helped install. Trump blindsided, misreading the base. The most profound aspect of this firestorm is the suggestion that Donald Trump genuinely did not predict this outcome. Trump's playbook has always been to attack relentlessly, dominate the news cycle, and force opponents into submission. When he turned his guns on Greene, he expected her to fold, just as others have before her. But in opposing the release of the Epstein files, Trump misjudged the true conviction of his base on the issue of elite accountability. For many MAGA voters, the promise of exposing the entrenched swamp is the only promise that matters. By labeling the Epstein issue a hoax and attacking the person fighting for its release, Trump inadvertently positioned himself as the defender of the very establishment he vowed to dismantle. The consequences were immediate. Local Republican committees, typically fiercely loyal, issued statements supporting Greene. Conservative commentators and talk show hosts, who once followed the Trump line without question, openly debated whether the president had crossed a dangerous ethical boundary. The unified front of the MAGA movement has been fractured, leaving a void where a new, more principled, and perhaps more dangerous populist movement is beginning to take shape. This battle is no longer about who is MAGA or not. It is about what MAGA truly means, and for the first time, Donald Trump is fighting to keep control of the narrative he once owned completely. The MAGA movement, once defined by its monolithic fealty to Donald Trump, is now grappling with a fundamental identity crisis. The public clash over the Epstein files has forced a painful choice onto the Republican base. Does MAGA stand for loyalty to the man or loyalty to the principles he espoused? Marjorie Taylor Greene, by championing the Epstein Files Transparency Act, shrewdly repositioned herself as the defender of the ideology that drained the swamp populism that was the original engine of the movement. Her public defiance and the traitor label hurled by Trump did not destroy her political standing within the base. For many, it consecrated her as a martyr for the cause of truth. The core of the fracture lies in the stark contrast between the issue's moral clarity and the political expediency of the White House. The abuse of American girls by global elites, exposed through the Epstein case, is a non-negotiable moral outrage for a significant segment of the conservative, religious, and populist voter base. Trump's abrupt pivot from championing the release of the documents to labeling the push a hoax and attacking its proponents was seen not as a strategic maneuver, but as a betrayal of the movement's most sacred covenant, the promise to hold the powerful accountable. Greene's immediate response was not to abandon Trumpism, but to claim its mantle for herself. She argued, compellingly to her followers, that it was the president who had strayed from the America First path by shielding an elite power structure. This created a politically potent narrative. Trump, the outsider, had become Trump, the protector of the swamp. The digital battlefield. Elon Musk weaponizes transparency. Elon Musk's role in this conflict transcends simple political commentary. He has acted as the accelerant of the MAGA schism by using his platform, X, to not only endorse Greene, but to directly accuse the White House of suppressing the files because they implicated the president. Musk transformed a congressional rift into a crisis of public trust in the executive branch. Musk's allegation that Trump himself was in the Epstein files was a spectacular, unsubstantiated political bomb. Although he would later delete the post amid mounting legal and political pressure, the damage was done. In the echo chamber of alternative media and online forums, the fleeting post served as a confirmation of deep-seated conspiracy theories about institutional corruption. The immediate effect was a surge in grassroots pressure. Within 48 hours of Musk's intervention, the search volume for the Epstein Files Transparency Act skyrocketed, and calls to congressional offices doubled. The base, already skeptical of establishment narratives, was now being fed raw, high-level speculation from one of the world's most recognizable and influential figures. Musk's involvement did two critical things: legitimized the rebellion. It provided a high-profile, non-political validator for Greene's defiance, making it harder for Trump allies to dismiss her as a fringe element. Forced Trump's hand. The public pressure, amplified by X, made the White House's initial opposition untenable. Trump's subsequent, rapid reversal, announcing that he would, in fact, sign the bill to release the files, was a tacit admission that the political ground had shifted beneath him. The loyalty test and the future of the right. Trump's forced acquiescence on the Epstein files, signing the bill after publicly fighting it for days, was a severe blow to his image of invincibility. It signaled to his supporters that his loyalty, once thought to be an unbreakable chain, could be challenged and even defeated by the pure force of an issue that mattered more to the base than allegiance to him. Republican lawmakers are now facing an agonizing choice. They must calculate whether the old political calculus, that supporting Trump is the only path to survival, still holds true, or if a new, more principled populist wing, championed by Greene and amplified by the Musk network, represents the future. The battle is no longer about Donald Trump's presidency. It is a battle over the definition of America First. Is it a protectionist, isolationist foreign policy led by an infallible figure? Or is it an uncompromising pursuit of anti-establishment transparency, even if that pursuit means taking on the movement's own standard-bearer? This schism, sparked by a congresswoman's moral stand and weaponized by a tech mogul, represents a genuine threat to the unified Republican front, exposing the brittle nature of a coalition built more on personality than on enduring, shared ideological doctrine. The White House's internal reaction to the escalating feud was characterized by shock, denial, and ultimately, a policy of chaotic, forced retreat. Trump's initial, aggressive attack on Marjorie Taylor Greene, labeling her a traitor, was a calculation based on his past political successes. Historically, any challenge to his authority within the Republican Party has been met with a ferocious counterattack that swiftly crushes the dissenter through the sheer force of his political brand. This time, however, the strategy failed spectacularly. The issue, the systemic corruption and elite cover-up inherent in the Epstein files, was too powerful. It was the original promise of his movement, and his base was unwilling to sacrifice that principle for personal loyalty, especially when the push for transparency was being championed by the most visible female defender of the MAGA ideology. When Elon Musk's digital artillery was brought to bear, the White House was forced into a state of triumph. The immediate spike in grassroots and media scrutiny made the administration's opposition to the Epstein Files Transparency Act politically toxic. Advisors reportedly urged the president to find a path to support the bill without appearing weak or contradictory. The compromise was a stunning policy reversal, announced via a late-night Truth Social post where Trump, without apologizing to Greene, declared that the House Republicans should vote for the bill, claiming, "We have nothing to hide." This reversal, from calling the bill a Democrat hoax to supporting it in less than a week, was not perceived as a display of strength, but as a demonstration of political vulnerability. It confirmed two devastating narratives for Trump's critics and his increasingly independent-minded base. The president can be forced to change his mind by public pressure, particularly when amplified by non-traditional power brokers like Elon Musk. His initial, visceral opposition suggested he did have something to hide, lending credibility to Musk's provocative claims about Trump's inclusion in the files. The legal smokescreen, a last-ditch effort to control the narrative even as Trump agreed to sign the Epstein Files Transparency Act, the administration sought a last-ditch mechanism to control the release of the documents and mitigate the political damage. Attorney General Pam Bondi, at the president's urging, announced a new, wide-ranging Department of Justice investigation into other prominent figures allegedly connected to Epstein, including several of the president's political opponents. This announcement was immediately denounced by Greene and other transparency advocates as a strategic smokescreen. As legal experts were quick to point out, the Epstein Files Transparency Act contains provisions allowing the Department of Justice to redact or withhold documents if their release would compromise an ongoing federal investigation. The suspicion was clear. By launching a new, broad-spectrum probe, even one that critics called politically motivated, the White House had armed the DOJ with the legal pretext to indefinitely withhold the most politically damaging or embarrassing files, potentially those involving the president or his close associates, under the guise of protecting a pending investigation. This move attempted to shift the battlefield from Congress to the Justice Department, setting up a legal clash that could drag on for years. However, it also handed Greene and her allies a new, potent talking point. Trump didn't really want transparency. He merely signed the bill to silence the rebellion while simultaneously creating a legal firewall to protect the political elite. The new populist axis, MTG, and the Musk network, the long-term consequence of this political firestorm is the solidification of a new populist axis within the American right, operating entirely outside the traditional Republican power structure. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who emerged from this feud bruised but politically validated, is now viewed by many purists as the most ideologically consistent voice of the America First movement, possessing a courage Trump himself failed to demonstrate. Elon Musk's role as the movement's information conduit and technological amplifier cannot be overstated. By providing a platform and a massive, loyal audience, he has essentially given the anti-establishment wing of the GOP an independent media ecosystem capable of bypassing White House spin and traditional conservative media filters. The tacit partnership between the populist politician and the tech disruptor represents a tectonic shift. The MAGA movement's future may no longer rely solely on the man, but on the enduring principles of transparency, anti-globalism, and a decentralized, digital platform capable of holding any leader, even a sitting president, accountable to the base. This is a firestorm that will not simply fade. It has created a deep and lasting wound in the body politic of the Republican Party, establishing a credible new leadership challenge that promises to define the next era of American conservatism. Is Trump's new DOJ investigation a legitimate move or a clever way to legally block the release of the most damaging Epstein files? Share your thoughts below. The fallout from the Trump-Greene-Musk entanglement extends far beyond the Beltway. It is, first and foremost, a political disaster for the concept of absolute loyalty that defined the MAGA movement. Trump's immediate dismissal of Greene as a traitor, followed by his swift and public humiliation of being forced to reverse his stance on the Epstein files, has created a blueprint for future dissent. It has demonstrated that the base can be mobilized to override the president's personal will when a core tenet of the MAGA ideology, draining the swamp, is perceived to be at risk. The internal polling within the Republican Party is reportedly showing a measurable decline in the cult of personality surrounding Trump and a corresponding surge in support for the America First principles as championed by Greene. This is the nightmare scenario for any leader whose power relies on unquestioning fealty. The base has tasted victory against their own leader, and they now know the power of their combined voices when focused on an issue of moral clarity. Local Republican organizations in Greene's home state of Georgia and across the country have issued statements walking a political tightrope, expressing unwavering support for both Trump and Greene, but simultaneously validating Greene's decision to pursue the Epstein files. This attempt to reconcile the irreconcilable highlights the deep cognitive dissonance within the party. The media scramble, traditional outlets forced to adapt. The narrative control exerted by the established conservative media, Fox News, talk radio hosts, and pro-Trump digital outlets, was also profoundly challenged. For days, these outlets struggled to rationalize Trump's initial opposition to the files and his attack on Greene. Many were forced to either ignore the feud entirely or echo the White House's legal smokescreen defense, claiming the controversy was a distraction from the Democrats. However, the powerful amplification provided by Elon Musk's X platform meant the story could not be suppressed. Independent journalists, alternative media influencers, and populist commentators, many of whom command vast and deeply engaged followings, used Musk's tweets and Greene's videos to bypass the traditional media gatekeepers. They framed the conflict not as a political squabble, but as a fight between an increasingly compromised establishment, Trump's White House, and a courageous, truth-seeking rebellion, Greene and her allies. Musk, by simply providing a high-volume platform and adding his own provocative commentary, effectively acted as a decentralized editor-in-chief for the populist movement, ensuring that the central, damaging accusation that Trump was protecting the powerful remained at the forefront of the digital conversation, drowning out the White House's attempts at damage control. The unseen threat, a nonpartisan populism, perhaps the most significant long-term consequence, is the emergence of a potential nonpartisan populist alliance. The Epstein Files Transparency Act itself was a deeply bipartisan effort, signed by 4 Republicans and all Democrats in the House. The issue of elite accountability, child trafficking, and swamp drainage transcends traditional party lines, appealing equally to the MAGA conservative who distrusts the establishment and the progressive who despises global corporate power. Greene's defiance, backed by the unprecedented digital reach of Elon Musk, has inadvertently created a template for a new political movement focused solely on transparency and anti-corruption. This nascent movement is not interested in which party is in power, only in whether that power is being abused. This is the threat Trump didn't predict. Not an opponent from the Democratic Party, but a hostile faction emerging from the very bedrock of his own ideology, capable of uniting diverse forces against him using the issue he himself failed to deliver on. The full release of the files, which is scheduled for the coming weeks, now looms as the definitive moment that will either heal or permanently cement the MAGA fracture, with the contents of the documents promising to be the final judge of who truly betrayed the America First promise. How do you think the traditional conservative media, like Fox News, can regain control of the narrative after being bypassed by Elon Musk and MTG's digital strategy? The political firestorm ignited by the Marjorie Taylor Greene and Elon Musk axis has entered its most critical phase, the waiting game. The White House, despite its legal attempts to shield potentially damaging documents through the pretext of a new, broad-spectrum DOJ investigation, is now legally bound to release the vast majority of the Epstein files. The deadline, mandated by Congress, looms as the date of reckoning for the political elite, and more specifically, for the MAGA movement's future. If the released documents contain explosive information that confirms Greene and Musk's core accusation, that the administration or its allies acted to protect individuals named in the files, the political fallout for President Trump will be devastating and potentially irreparable. It would retroactively validate the traitor charge he levied against Greene as a catastrophic miscalculation and confirm to the base that the president chose self-preservation over the founding principle of draining the swamp. Conversely, if the files are heavily redacted or contain little that directly implicates Trump or his inner circle, the White House will attempt to reclaim the narrative, painting Greene and Musk as irresponsible political actors driven by ego and misinformation. However, even a non-eventful release is unlikely to fully heal the fracture. Too much political capital has been spent, and the image of Trump publicly reversing his position under pressure will remain a permanent stain on his image of political infallibility. The new power dynamic, a decentralized MAGA the true, lasting legacy of this conflict is the transformation of the MAGA movement from a centralized cult of personality into a decentralized, digital populist force. Marjorie Taylor Greene is no longer just a loyal foot soldier. She is a tested leader of an ideological wing within the Republican Party, commanding legitimacy independent of the president. She represents the principle of populist revolt. Elon Musk has positioned himself as the ultimate disruptor and information gatekeeper, capable of setting the political agenda by leveraging technology and a massive audience. He represents the mechanism of populist revolt. The combination of MTG's political courage and Musk's technological amplification has created an alliance that future Republican leaders, and indeed future administrations of any party, must contend with. This new axis proves that a grassroots, anti-establishment message can now bypass traditional power structures, including the presidency itself, and wield genuine political power. The Epstein Files firestorm has revealed the brittle foundations of the Trump-centric Republican Party. The question is no longer if the MAGA movement will evolve past its founder, but whether the revelations contained within the documents will serve as the final, necessary catalyst for that dramatic and unpredictable transformation. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.